Hello, I'm Bob the Booker and welcome back to my channel. Today I thought I'd do a little bit of a follow-up of a video I did fairly recently, which was shouting out some books and booktubers that basically I've sort of been watching a lot of recently, particularly books that those booktubers have, I've said the word book a lot now, haven't I? Books that those booktubers have been talking a lot about and have, as a result, made me really keen to want to check them out. And so the first part, please feel free to go back and look at. As usual, I seem to be very good at adding to my TBR, less good at actually getting through it, but we shall see. There we go. So firstly, I wanted to focus on a book by a booktuber that I'm just really excited about, and that, I don't know why I left the books over there when I was going to do the video. Clever me. And that is the book The Adventures of China Iron by Gabriela Cabezón Cámara. I probably butchered that name. And I heard about this book a lot, partly through the International Booker Prize anyway last year in 2020, but also Paula over at Draw Your Book speaks really intelligently about this book. And I just think it sounds so interesting, this idea of this sort of woman going through kind of quite a lot of trials. There's a kind of queer element. It's from this sort of small press. I just think this book sounds really interesting, and it looks like it's a weirdly kind of quick read as well. I mean, it's only sort of about 200 pages, but it also has kind of quite a lot of little breaks. It's kind of, some parts of it are told in kind of poem form almost, or in stanzas, and it just sounds like a really fascinating book, if a very bizarre one. You know, we've got a young woman eking out an existence in a remote gaucho encampment, and this is in 1872. So it sounds kind of wonderfully baffling and brilliant, and so I'm really excited to check this book out, amongst others. On a similar note, the booktuber Fraser Simmons, also known as Springboard Thought, recommended this book a while ago when I first mentioned Piranesi as part of the Women's Prize shortlist deep dive and review. And this book is The Invention of Morel, which you cannot really see because of the glare, but this is by Adolfo Bioy Casares. And this book is another Argentinian author, actually, talking about this kind of, they've sort of been compared a lot to Turn of the Screw, is this kind of idea of these sort of very kind of bizarre, twisty kind of things. It focuses a lot around the ideas of sort of labyrinths and sort of those sorts of things in much the same way as something like Piranesi does. And Fraser sort of, you know, in the comments sort of said actually this might be something I really enjoy as a sort of counterpoint to something like Piranesi, to sort of see it done differently, and it just seems to see some of those same themes covered in a similar way. So I'm really excited to check this out, and I also very much urge you to go and check out Fraser's channel as well. He has some really interesting deep dives about certain books, but also on sort of certain issues and ideas in books in a way that I just think sounds really clever and really interesting. And this book itself is just around 100 pages, so I'm really keen to sort of actually get through this and be able to give it back to the library in a normal time and not just hoard it like a dragon with gold for 4 months or something. But there we go. Next up is a booktuber who needs very little introduction. It's Kieran over at KD Books, and a book that he was speaking about recently, and when I met with him in person, he kindly bought me a copy, is Pigeon by Alys Conran. And so this book, I'll just sort of read a little bit on the back here, but it was sort of, it won a Welsh Book Prize. Quite fittingly, this was when Kieran and I met when I was in Cardiff one time, and yeah, this book sounds really interesting. So, Yola and Pigeon make up stories to test each other, stories of daring and adventure, of bad people, and of Gwyn, who drives his ice cream up the hill to their town every week. Gwyn is a dangerous man, and Pigeon knows it. Iola is not so sure. And as they grow up and their friendship grows more complicated, some of their stories fall silent, but some will become more true. And so I'm really excited about this, especially as I realised that despite having some Welsh family, way back, I can't really claim too much Welshness, being a little London boy in some ways, but I'm really keen to actually read a bit more Welsh fiction, because actually I think with a lot of UK writing, you know, so much of it is sort of focused around England. You know, authors from the other nations don't often get quite the same platform. Scottish writers generally have been doing a bit better on that front, but Welsh and Northern Irish authors sort of tend to get a little bit more sidelined. So really excited to read something else that is Welsh, and particularly a book that I had not heard of at all until Kieran spoke about it. So I'm very excited to check this out. And Kieran and another booktuber who I really want to shout out, Low Shelf Esteem, which firstly is a brilliant brilliant name, both spoke about this book that is wonderfully bizarre. I know that Sean, the Book Maniac, also did a little sort of chat about this book recently, and it's a bit of a kind of old classic in some ways that's sort of a bit controversial in its own way, and that is Bear by Marian Engel. And so this this book, I feel like every time anyone talks about it, they're like, so this is wild. This book is off the scale, and it's just a bit bizarre. So largely, it I'll just read this. I feel like this is probably the easiest way around this. Lou is a librarian at the local Heritage Institute who lives a mole-like existence, buried among maps and manuscripts in her dusty basement office. The chance to escape the monotony of her city life comes when she is summoned to a remote island to inventory the late Colonel Jocelyn Carey's estate. Gosh, I can't read at all today. Hoping for an industrious summer of cataloguing, Lou heads north. Colonel Carey left behind many positions, but no one warned her about the bear. After a tentative start, Lou soon begins to anticipate the animal's needs for food and company, and as summer blooms across the island, she discovers that the bear might satisfy some needs of her own. So, as you may be able to sort of tell a little bit from that, the whole kind of satisfying needs thing does come into this. It does involve from what I've heard from both Kieran and Low Shelf Esteem talking about this, some kind of semi-romantic / sexual / whatever else relationship between woman and bear. And this sounds so bonkers that I am really kind of keen to check it out. It just sounds like it's going to be wild. I feel like I'm either going to be disgusted by this or find it brilliant and hilarious. And really that's quite a nice sort of like crossroads to be at, really. I guess sort of better to have a book that sort of is polarizing and a bit out there than a book that's kind of middle of the road and a bit meh. So yeah, really excited to check this one out. And another book that Low Shelf Esteem spoke about as well was Drive Your Plow Over the Bones of the Dead by Olga Tokarczuk. I've been meaning to read this for a while as well, partly as well because of the International Booker Prize, and just because generally I don't think I've read a great deal of literature sort of from Poland or from Polish authors, and this itself as well sounds really interesting. You know, she is an author who gained a bit of attention more recently. She won the Nobel Prize not long ago. She is sort of a well-known Polish author, but for quite a while wasn't necessarily translated outside of her country, and this also sounds like it ticks so many sort of boxes for me. It involves a lot around environmentalism, around mental health, around trauma, around small communities, around kind of tradition versus modernity. So many things, and it's kind of sounds a bit wild, and I'm really keen to check out more like that. Her novel Flights also won the International Booker Prize, so again, really keen to check that out. And just generally, Fitzcarraldo Press is just kind of great and fairly solid, so really excited to see what this book has in store. And that takes me to the final book on this, which is Crying in H Mart, which was sort of recommended by, what page are you on? Alex over at What Page Are You On? And Alex is great anyhow, but the way he spoke about this book sounded really interesting. Just the idea of really kind of a modern look at kind of identity. And although I know lots of books obviously speak about identity, this book sounds like it takes a really interesting angle, particularly kind of looking at a kind of a North American experience for someone with sort of Asian heritage, and particularly the perspective of the author, who is also you know, who's in a band and sort of has this other sort of international, I guess, perspective. So really keen to check this out. I think it sounds super interesting, and it's also something that Fraser Simmons spoke about as well. So super keen to see how these books all kind of come along. Really excited to check them out, and kind of slightly, I'm glad that I own a fair few of these already in some ways. What was quite nice about this as a sort of TBR was realizing that I either had some of them around, could easily find them in the library, or just generally was able to find them fairly cheaply and simply anyway. So this hopefully should not change things too much. It's hopefully not going to cost me too much, but all sound very exciting. Anyhow, I would love to hear from you. What books are kind of on your radar? Are there any things that you're really wanting to check out? / are there any booktubers who you would really recommend? And there's a fly that's really just kind of doing the rounds today. But would you, yeah, I would love to hear recommendations from you about any books or booktubers that you've been really enjoying. And apart from that, take care. I've been Bob the Bookerer, and enjoy your reading. Bye bye.